Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's November 13th, 2025. I'd like to call the business meeting of the Governing Board of the South Florida Water Management District to order. Let's see, it was Veterans Day 2 days ago, and I'd like to thank all those on our staff and all those on this dais and all those listening for their service in our armed forces. And I'd like to ask Colonel Roman if she would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'd all stand and face the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Charlotte, and good morning, everybody. It's good to see you here. Vice Chair Wagner is not going to be able to join us today, and Mr. Martinez and Mr. Steinle are both on remotely. Mr. Martinez, are you there?
I am here, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks. And Mr. Steinle?
I'm here, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Good morning. For those board members who are here, I'm going to ask that you make sure your microphone is on and that you speak into the mic so online attendees can hear you. For those board members who are on Zoom, I can't see you when you raise your hand, so if you want to speak out and ask a question, please just call your name out and I'll acknowledge you. Members of the public on Zoom who wish to address the board can use the raise your hand feature. If members of the public are having any trouble and need help, please go to our website, which is sfwmd.gov, and click the Ask Us button at the top of the page, and staff will help you out. If you're using a phone and you'd like to comment, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute and to unmute. As a courtesy to others who wish to speak, members of the public are asked to comment only once on a topic. We'll take public comment first from those who are here in person and submitted a comment card, followed by those with raised hands on Zoom. Now we're going to move to employee recognitions. If you'll all join me down in the well, and we'll have Ms. Smith do that.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair and Governing Board members. Happy to be doing the employee recognitions today. Unfortunately, Drew isn't here in person, and he apologizes to the employees being recognized as well and has committed to taking all of them to lunch, so make sure you stop by and see him when he gets back in. All right, we're going to start off with our November 2025 Employee of the Month, and that is Greg Nolte. Greg serves as the section lead for the Engineering and Construction Bureau Project Management section. He joined the district in 2019 with over 35 years of experience in the water resources industry under his belt. He brings a deep well of knowledge and leadership to every project he touches. Prior to joining the district, he had a distinguished career with Martin County, where he honed his expertise as a civil engineer. Currently, Greg is the technical project manager for the Central Everglades Planning Project North Phase, a cornerstone initiative of the Central Everglades Restoration Plan. SEP North is a critical and highly complex project requiring precise coordination and strategic foresight. Greg's leadership has been instrumental in navigating the project's unique challenges, particularly its demanding construction sequencing, which involves multiple components being built simultaneously within a confined footprint. Greg embraces these complexities head-on. He built a high-performing, multidisciplinary team, secured the necessary resources, and led the project through its development with efficiency and clarity. His ability to foster collaboration has created a cohesive team culture where productivity and harmony thrive. What truly sets Greg apart is his dedication and positive leadership style. He never backs down from a challenge, whether it's a tight deadline or a difficult task. He quickly identifies what's needed, delegates responsibilities, and ensures the team stays aligned with the project objectives. He has a passion for engineering and a love for the Everglades. Beyond his project management excellence, Greg also dedicates times to mentoring young engineers. Despite his demanding schedule, he makes it a priority to support the next generation of professionals. One of his mentees shared how Greg's work ethic, passion, and guidance had a lasting impact, inspiring him to strive for excellence. Greg's commitment to restoring Florida's ecosystems and nurturing future engineers embodies the spirit of public service. We're proud to celebrate Greg and the incredible work he continues to do for Florida's water resources and the engineering community. Greg, we really appreciate all the work you're doing on SEP North, and if you look in your SERP report this month, it shows that an important component of SEP North, the S620, is nearly complete. Congratulations, Greg. All right, next we have our November 2025 Team of the Month, and that is the Central Florida Water Initiative Regional Water Supply Plan Team. And that includes Tom Colios, Stacy Kuntz, Chris Esterson, Jose Grisales, Rebecca May, Brian Moore, Anushi Obiascara, Stacy Paisno, Lisa Prather, Kevin Rodberg, and Robert Wavenstraut. The state of Florida is growing every day, and it's very important that we plan ahead for the needs of our region. Water supply plans take a look at least 20 years into the future, and we update those every 5 years to stay current with growth trends. Currently, more than 3 billion gallons of water are used every day in central and southern Florida. This plan is the culmination of a 3-year effort that required a tremendous amount of work to ensure the plan was developed with statutory requirements and ensure the plan addressed the issues and concerns of the stakeholders in the region. The CFWI planning area encompasses Orange, Osceola, Polk, Seminole, and Southern Lake counties. We, the South Florida Water Management District, oversee Orange, Osceola, and Polk. Seminole is part of St. Johns River Water Management District, and Lake County is part of Southwest Florida Water Management District. CFWI was developed to provide a uniform approach for water management in a region where boundaries of 3 water management districts come together, and where water withdrawals in one district may impact water resources and water users throughout the entire area. As you can imagine, CFWI effort is an extremely collaborative process between the 3 water management districts, DEP, and FDACS, as well as public utilities, environmental groups, and other stakeholders. This is a particularly challenging planning area because of its complexity, coordinating with the 3 water management districts, significant environmental systems, including springs, and a very rapidly growing population, which is no surprise to anyone that drives north on the turnpike like we've been going through Osceola County. This plan update required significant internal and external coordination. Public participation is a big part of the planning process to ensure the plan reflects issues and concerns of stakeholders. We had 4 public workshops conducted, and there were numerous meetings with stakeholders from all interest groups. We received valuable input, and the input was incorporated into the water supply plan, which is on our discussion agenda today. This success story would not have been possible without the hard work, perseverance, and dedication of this team. Water supply planning, water conservation, and the use of alternative water supplies are essential to meet the growing demands on our limited water resources. So I want to congratulate to the South Florida Water Initiative's Regional Water Supply Plan team for being Team of the Month. That's a mouthful. Congratulations. We'll go for that. I have one on every jacket that I own. Thank you. All right, we have a couple service awards. We have a 30-year service award, and that's for Renee Hammett, Principal IT Security Analyst in our Division of Information Technology. Over 3 decades, Renee has built an exceptional career spanning operations, SCADA, and information technology. A proud graduate with a bachelor's degree in computer science from Florida Atlantic University, Renee has continually invested in her growth and expertise, earning multiple cybersecurity certifications. Renee began her journey in our data management group as a computer programmer and data collections administrator, where her technical insight and dedication quickly set her apart. She later joined the operations organization, supporting and maintaining the district's evolving SCADA system from a custom in-house platform to multiple commercial solutions, each adapted to meet our unique needs. Throughout her career, Renee has been a wonderful partner to our SCADA field operations team, control room engineers, and water managers, always ensuring the reliability and security of the systems that power our mission. In 2014, inspired by her growing passion for cybersecurity, Renee transitioned to the IT department as an IT security liaison. There, she expanded her focus beyond SCADA systems to champion cybersecurity across the district's entire enterprise. Today, as our IT security principal, Renee continues to safeguard our digital infrastructure, managing firewalls, strengthening security systems, and protecting the integrity of our operations. Renee has also made a tremendous impact through community service. She founded the Food of Families Collection in 2001, leading efforts that gathered over 30,000 pounds of food. To do a Drew translation, that feeds 500 families, as well as baby items and toys for families in need. Renee is also an avid runner. She completed 4 marathons and many half marathons, including the 50th Marine Corps Marathon in Washington, D.C. She is also deeply dedicated to her family and proudly became a first-time grandmother in 2024. Renee often shares that all her accomplishments have been made possible by the love and support of her family, who have been her foundation every step of the way. Congratulations, Renee, and thank you so much for your 30 years of service. All right, last but certainly not least, we have a 35-year service award for someone who's definitely not a stranger to the board, and that is Mark Elsner, our Water Supply Bureau Chief. Mark has spent his entire 35 years at the district in water supply planning, the last 20 of those as a manager. Mark graduated from Penn State University with a degree in petroleum engineering. After a stint in the oil fields in the Gulf, he came to Florida in 1986 to work for what was then the Department of Environmental Regulation in wastewater facility permitting. In 1990, Mark was hired as a senior utility engineer and then became the senior supervising planner in the Upper District Planning Division. In 2005, Mark entered the management ranks as a director of what was then the Water Supply Planning Implementation Division, then became the section administrator for the Water Supply Development section in 2011. He was promoted to Water Supply Bureau Chief in 2016. As the Water Supply Bureau Chief, Mark is responsible for the district's water supply planning efforts, alternative water supply development, conservation program, local government planning coordination, groundwater modeling, and hydrogeology. It's a lot. He's worn many hats, obviously, with all of those responsibilities. He participated in the development of the state's first water reuse rules in the late 80s and has been engaged ever since. He served as the district's reuse coordinator on the statewide reuse coordinating committee in the 1990s and 2000s, on the technical review team for the EPA's national reuse guidelines, and on the board of the Water Reuse Association's water section for over 15 years. He received the National Water Reuse Association's President's Award in 2021 for his contributions to reuse. One of his favorite reuse memories was spending the year with Ms. Roman when she was the proud recipient of the district's Purple Jacket, and they went around talking about reuse as part of her Purple Tour. He's been a part of the district's water supply planning since 1990, initially as a utility engineer, then a plan manager for the Upper East Coast and Lower West Coast water supply plans, and now oversees water supply plan development for the entire district. Mark was the plan manager for the first water supply plan in the state to meet the first state statutes of water supply planning that passed in 1997. Development of this plan included 24 monthly advisory committee public meetings. That is very transparent. That's a lot of public meetings. And that was a learning moment. So now we typically have 3 or more public meetings with our plans. Mark has managed or overseen the development over 20 water supply plans, including the establishment of the Central Florida Water Initiative water supply planning process, which, as you've learned today, involves 3 water management districts. He was responsible for the initial development of the district's alternative water supply funding program. He also served on several water shortage and hurricane teams during EOC activations, including serving a major role in the 2007 drought, and he's currently overseeing the water shortage in Cape Coral. Mark is a registered professional engineer and an Eagle Scout. Now, to be a successful manager like Mark, you need to have a great team. He has a great appreciation for the people he works with, especially the staff in his bureau. Mark enjoys seeing his staff learn, mature, and accomplish their goals. He's also a big supporter of the district's mentoring program, serving on the selection committee and mentoring 1 or more staff annually. Now, when it comes to water conservation, Mark walks the walk. Mark's house was one of the first homes in Palm Beach County to receive a gold level yard certification from the Florida Yards and Neighborhood Program. But it's not all work for Mark. He and his golf partner took home the coveted District Golf League Champions Trophy in 2023, only 20 years after being in the league. He also played in many district softball and volleyball tournaments in his early years. Mark was the captain of the Penn State bowling team and enjoys bowling. When not at work, he enjoys anything outdoors like golf, woodworking, tinkering around the house, working in the yard, cornhole, smoking a variety of meats on his pellet grill, I can relate, spending time with family, and chasing his 2-year-old grandson around. He's been married to his wife, Donna, for 38 years and has a daughter, grandson, and another grandchild on the way. He's a 3rd-generation engineer, and his daughter, Heather, is also an engineer. She was 1 month old when he came to the district. This will be Mark's last recognition because he's going to be retiring in the spring of 2026. And obviously, he will be greatly missed. Mark, we appreciate you so much. Congratulations on your 35 years.
Congratulations, Mark.
That's funny. Well, thank you, Jennifer. We'll move now to agenda revisions. Molly, is there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. A new item, 27, was added to the consent agenda, and all subsequent agenda items were renumbered.
Thanks. Poll members, agenda abstentions and board members, I can read. I'm going to ask if you have any abstentions, and I'll start with you, Mr. Spotswood.
I have none.
Thanks. I have none. Colonel Roman,
I have none.
Mr. Butler,
I have none.
Mr. Hurley.
I have none.
We'll come back to Mr. Bergeron. Mr. Martinez?
None.
Thank you. Mr. Steinley?
I don't have any.
Thank you. We'll ask Mr. Bergeron in a minute. We'll go now to, here he is. Mr. Bergeron, do you have any abstentions?
No, sir.
He said no. We'll then move now to the Big Cypress Basin Board Report, and that's given by the Chair of the Big Cypress Basin Board, Charlotte Roman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Big Cypress Basin Board met on October 30th, 2025. The meeting began with a report by the Basin Administrator, Lisa Keeler, who provided an overview of the basin's canal bank assessment program, the upcoming tree removal project, and an update on the Bird Rookery Swamp Boardwalk. She also asked the Basin Board to approve the meeting dates for 2026. Laura Lehman provided an update on the Corkscrew Watershed Initiative. The goal of the CWI is to restore the historic hydrology and ecology in Audubon's Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary and the surrounding natural areas within the Corkscrew Regional Ecosystem Watershed. Laura provided an update on the project status and an overview of the proposed restoration concepts that the technical working group had identified. These were also shared with the public this summer. An update was also provided on the various early implementation projects that the CWI team identified, such as the Lee County Larry Kiker Preserve Project. Laura shared a copy of the new CWI information one-pager with the board and offered to speak to any groups about the project. Lucine Dadrian covered fiscal year adjustments to the Basin capital plan, and due to the design delays with one of the projects, staff identified the FACA Union and I-75 canals that could be projects that could be accelerated. This updated plan will be submitted to Collier County Commissioners for approval later this month. Next, Robin Sierney, Crew Trail Operations Coordinator, presented on the Crew Trust collaboration with Audubon of Florida, the Naples Garden Club, and the district staff to reintroduce 380 native orchids into the Corkscrew Regional Ecosystem Watershed. There were over 20 participants representing 10 local environmental organizations who dedicated nearly 360 volunteer hours to this project. So far, roughly 80% of the orchids have adapted, and the team will continue to monitor. Cindy Woolley, representing Keep Collier Boulevard, provided an update on the 2025 International Coastal Cleanup held in September. In total, the group of more than 2,600 volunteers removed over 8,000 pounds of trash from local beaches and waterways. Keep Collier Beautiful is a nonprofit organization that is participating with the Big Cypress Basin to look for ways to reestablish the local Adopt a Canal program. We closed our meeting with technical and staff reports, and our next Basin Board meeting is Friday, February 27th in the new year, 2026, at 11 a.m. And board members, I wanted to highlight in your folder today the new Corkscrew Watershed Initiative one-pager. And I'd like to thank the staff team who put this together and made this available. So I know we're all busy, but you might want to take a look at it. And many of you who attended the governing board meeting in Naples a couple of years ago had the opportunity to visit Audubon's Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary. That's a part of the hub of the entire watershed that the Corkscrew Watershed Initiative is looking at. So I highlight that for you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes my report, subject to your questions.
Thanks. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Colonel Roman? My only comment would be to thank you. I know your job is a job, and it's extra work, and I really appreciate it. And
thank
you do it very well.
Thank
We'll
you.
now move to the approval of the minutes for October 9th. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes of the October 9th meeting? If not, is there a motion to approve them?
So moved.
I have a motion to approve by Mr. Spotswood. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Colonel Roman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Mr. Spotswood?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Colonel Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Steinle?
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. We will now move to our Executive Director report with Mr. Bartlett. Drew, you there?
Thank you. Yes,
morning.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. It pains me not to be there. Man, I really wish I was.
We'll try and behave.
I will get on with the report. So many of you were there. We held a groundbreaking with the governor last Friday, and that marked the 80th achievement since he took office for Everglades restoration and South Florida ecosystem restoration. I just got to say that is a pretty remarkable, and to have the 80th be the pump station for the EAA reservoir was really a monumental day. And it all started with the July 18th historic agreement that the governor signed with the Army that really put the pedal to the metal on the EAA reservoir project. And staff got busy to really get it done, to get the pump station ready for that groundbreaking. But I'm also happy to report that I've been working with the Corps and the contractors on site, and the Corps is absolutely on board and taking all the necessary steps to complete that embankment in 2029. So this project is on. And what I want to report is that with completing a reservoir of that size and magnitude in 4 years really takes a lot of work, a lot of crews, a lot of logistics. And so immediately the district knew it needed to step up and make arrangements to make sure that there's safety on site, that the roads are there, that everything is arranged so that you can do the logistics with so many crews working simultaneously on site. And so using the authority that you granted us last week, we essentially worked with the landowners to the north of the reservoir to do a few things. We needed to move the construction site for the pump station outside the interior of the reservoir so that our construction crews could work independent of any logistics on the inside of the reservoir for the embankment construction. So there's a laydown area now that is going to be built on the north side of the reservoir. And also we're going to build roads to and from. Like when you're building something of this magnitude, you need a lot of access points because you're going to do a lot of hauling and with many, many trucks in and out of the site, taking crews, taking materials. And so we needed to build a number of roads, both into the site itself for the Corps' construction crews and also out to the pump station. And that, again, was across private property. And so we engaged Star Farms and Florida Crystals as soon as we saw this happening. And I just have to tell you that they responded immediately and knew the importance and recognized the importance of this project to the state of Florida. And at this point, we have agreements in place. We have contracts issued to build these roads, to build these construction sites on their property. They're temporary in nature, but they worked with us to give us the access, signed the agreements, and we've executed the contracts to make this happen. So we very much appreciate their willingness to work with us, and we now have this, we are helping the Corps with their construction site. So happy to report on that. The other thing with respect to this MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding signed on July 18th, is we just yesterday posted a framework that kind of outlines some of the details on how we're going to do two things. Finish the construction of the EA reservoir in 2029, and also put together the necessary agreements for us to build and expedite federal SERP projects with federal dollars. So you can see it on our website. I think you have it in front of you as well. So that is now available for you and the public on how we're going to proceed under the memorandum of understanding. So lots happened since the 18th, but I'm proud to say that everyone has stepped up to make it happen. Since the last board meeting, I have presented twice in Tallahassee on SERP, and that both in the Senate and in the House of Representatives. I was received very well, had a lot of meetings with senators and representatives, and really I wanted to share that everyone up there really appreciates the progress that we have made, and really appreciates that we are getting it done expeditiously. And they very much recognize that it's making a difference in South Florida when it comes to estuaries, when it comes to the Everglades and sending water south. It's really making a difference, and they appreciate it. They really, I feel there's a lot of support for SERP and support for us getting the job done. So the last thing I have for you, Mr. Chair, is on your desk, there is a draft tentative governing board meeting calendar for 2026. One of the things I have put on the calendar a business meeting for the board in January. I didn't do it on the second Tuesday of January because I wanted to leave more time for staff to prepare for the meeting without interfering with holidays. So moving the meeting back in January had a little bit of a cascading effect through the following months just to get the spacing right on business meetings for the governing board. It's a draft tentative plan. I'd appreciate if you'd look at it and let either me or Jennifer Smith or Jill Margolius know if there's any dates that become problematic. Just keep in mind, I'll bring it back in December as the tentative plan for 2026. All these are, schedules. They're subject to change as the year goes on, but it's something to help with planning as we go forward. I'm very pleased to report that I finished my executive report without entering a coughing fit, but I'm here for any questions you might have.
Well, thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments? None from us. Hope you're feeling better soon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We'll move now to general public comment. The first public comment period, if you are here to comment on a specific agenda item, we ask that you hold your comment until we reach that item on our agenda. This comment period is for general comments not related to agenda items. Public comments on consent agenda item is 12 on the agenda, and public comment on the discussion agenda item will be heard after the presentation. The public had an opportunity to provide written comments prior to this meeting. We did not receive any e-comments. Is there a general public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We'll begin with Gil Smart, followed by Newton Cook.
Good morning, governing board members. My name's Gil Smart. I'm policy director for Friends of the Everglades. We're based in Stewart, founded in 1969 by Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. We wanted to address some comments made by Mr. Bartlett during a November 4th hearing before the House Agriculture and Natural Resources Budget Subcommittee, where he was asked by the chair, Representative John Snyder, whether there was a foreseeable time when we could say effectively that we've completed the job of restoration south of the lake. Mr. Bartlett's response was that there's an opportunity to do this before 2030 with the completion of the EAA Reservoir project, at which time we'd go into sort of maintenance mode and the focus would shift to north of the lake to growing our storage capabilities there, that this is the next frontier. Drew didn't say this, but it almost sounds as if 2030 will be a mission accomplished moment whereby we wipe our hands and pat ourselves on the back for a job well done. We think that would be a mistake. We understand it's been 25 years since the inception of SERP and billions of dollars have been spent, and there's naturally an impatience. When are we going to be done with this? But the question I'd put to you is this. When SERP is complete, does that mean we have fully restored the Everglades? There's a long-standing scientific consensus that about 1 million acre-feet of additional water storage is needed south of Lake O to finish the job of Everglades restoration in addition to the EAA Reservoir project. Rather than asking when we can declare victory, we might be asking what comes after SERP. What would a SERP 1.0 look like? At Friends of the Everglades, we have an answer in the form of our Rescue the River of Grass campaign, which calls for using existing state land acquisition dollars to buy significantly more land south of the lake for water storage and treatment so we can effectively eliminate harmful discharges to the St. Lucie and Caloosahatchee and send enough clean water to Everglades National Park and Florida Bay for restoration goals. We must plan now for the next phase of restoration to ensure we do not lose momentum once SERP is complete. The need is especially urgent as new development proposals emerge in the EAA, like the rock mine proposal, and climate extremes require more large-scale water storage and treatment in South Florida. So please, let's be wary of declaring mission accomplished, as we should always be. If we do, maybe the Everglades survives, but the northern estuaries will be under perpetual threat. We are accomplishing good things, but we've still got a long road ahead of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smart. Next, we'll hear from Newton Cook, followed by Jake Foytik.
Good morning, Newton Cook, United Waterfowls of Florida. Just a few things. First of all, thanks to the district for what they do at the SDAs for the youth hunts that are FWC managements, but this Saturday is the youth hunt. And we try to have a little food or something for the kids coming off, and it's greatly appreciated. The big one, of course, is at the end of the season. We also are asking for help, although it always comes, for the Wounded Warrior hunts, which are scheduled at this point for the last 2 Saturdays of January. That would be the 24th and the 31st. Anybody out there listening, if that doesn't work with you, let us know right away, because scheduling these Wounded Warriors come in from all over, and there's 30 of them, and then there's 60 helpers. So it's a big, big, big project, and we keep them overnight. We have food, we have entertainment. So, in the district, all they have to do is just let us do it. But it's very much appreciated. If there is any problem, the staff, please let us know, because at this point, we're moving forward. I was at the FWC Commission meeting, and we have interest from the FWC commissioners to establish the Lake O Management Committee. The FWC already has an annual meeting. It was here, in fact, this last month. What we need now is for the Corps and the governing board, South Florida Water Management District, to establish a meeting. 3 meetings a year. One chaired by the here, one chaired by the Corps, one chaired by the FWC. Those are the 3 big agencies that manage Lake Okeechobee. Every 4 months, one topic, Lake Okeechobee. 2 basic or 3 basic agenda items. What is the condition of the lake today? What are we going to do to fix it? Now, the lake has just been declared the dirtiest lake in USA. We lost the bass masters. Something needs to be done about the heart of the Everglades. If we can't get the heart right, we're never going to get the Everglades right. That's about as simple as it can be. Last but not least is I just want to say thanks to all the staff here for what they do. I know sometimes I can ask for stuff that's a little difficult, but I think this Lake O Management Committee thing is probably the most important that we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Next, we'll hear from Jake Foytik, followed by Caitlin Newcamp.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Governing Board. Jake Foytik, Assistant Director of Government and Community Affairs, the Florida Farm Bureau Federation. Just a couple things to bring up today. First, congrats to Mr. Elsner on your service award and pending retirement next year. As Newton mentioned, you guys got great staff. Nobody does it better than you guys, and especially the water supply folks. We submit a lot of comments year after year on all the water supply plans, and there's always an open ear to listen to our concerns and comments, so we're very appreciative of that. It's been busy fall this year. Newton mentioned a lot of discussion about Lake O at the FWC meeting last week, a lot of groundbreakings. It was nice to see FWC in Belglade and see some more focus on the lake there as well. Also, Farm City Week. Farm City Week starts next week. It runs the 19th through the 26th, leading up to Thanksgiving. This is a week that's celebrated nationwide. It highlights, celebrates, and recognizes the rural and urban communities that make our food supply safe and abundant and affordable and plentiful. There should be a lot of events around the district next week, so keep an eye out for those. They're really good events, and it's a great opportunity for our rural and urban communities to get together and break bread leading up to Thanksgiving. Other than that, looking forward to a great agenda today. We have flood control, public-private partnerships, and LORP ASR wells on the agenda, all of which Farm Bureau strongly supports. So we're excited to see things like that on the agenda this week. So thank you guys very much. Looking forward to a good meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Foytick. Next, we'll hear from Caitlin Newcamp.
Good morning, governing board members and chair. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. Caitlin Newcamp with Audubon, Florida. First, I just want to say we really appreciate the dedication of the board and staff to managing South Florida's complex water systems and balancing so many competing needs across the region. So this morning, I'd like to speak briefly about the conditions in the Caloosahatchee estuary. Right now, flows are around 350 cubic feet per second, which are well below the minimum flow and level threshold of 457 and far below the lower end of the recover envelope, which begins at 750 CFS for maintaining estuary health. At these low flows, we risk crossing a harm threshold that can take quite a while to recover from. Meanwhile, Lake Okeechobee is about a foot above the water shortage management line, and modeling indicates potentially 75% probability that we will not reach rationing conditions during this dry season. If we do, it will likely not occur until late spring. Given these conditions, we respectfully ask the district to consider whether current restrictions on the flows to the Caloosahatchee are warranted at this time. We recommend flows closer to the bottom of the recover envelope, around 750 CFS, to help prevent long-term ecological harm to our estuaries. In an era when we recognize the value of healthy aquatic ecosystems, including our estuaries, this is an opportunity to take care of the Caloosahatchee when it most needs it, and we still have time to. So I just want to thank you all again for your leadership and your continued efforts to manage water for both people and the environment, and please take this into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newcamp. Next, we'll move over to our virtual participants, beginning with Mark Perry. Mr. Perry, please unmute.
Yes, can you hear me all right?
We hear you.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry to be on the road, but through Belglade here, we're actually looking to mention the same things that Ms. Newcamp just mentioned about, the minimum flow and levels to the Caloosahatchee particularly. Right now, the lake's at, 13.74. There's a lot of water going south as you're providing irrigation water from now through May, basically, to the EAA for irrigation out of the lake. But you got to also remember your obligation to supply minimum flow and level to the Caloosahatchee estuary, particularly during this dry season. So I just kind of remind you of that. There's always that consciousness of balancing out everything for water supply needs, but that water supply for the environment over there is definitely needed at this time. So that's all for now. Thank you again. And I've known Mark Elsner for probably about 25 out of those 35 years, and congratulations to him on those many years of service, and we'll surely miss him in water supply plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Mr. Chairman, we have no additional public comment.
Well, thank you all very much for your comments. We'll move now to board comments, and let's see, I'll start with Mr. Hurley.
Mr. Chair, I don't really have any comments right now.
Okay, Mr. Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, that happened fast this morning. Let's see, a couple things we'll get to see him later, but Mr. Elsner, thank you for all your years of service, and look forward to one last grilling here during discussion when we finally get there. Question right off the bat here, John, hit this right now. What's lake level at today? Our lake level seems to have been a little off.
This morning's report was 13.74.
Is that an accurate number? I mean, it looked like we dropped 0.2 yesterday and then back up 0.1 today. So I guess wind and.
Correct.
wind event, just kind of moving things around. Okay,
Right.
all right, I was just kind of curious on that. And then that leads into, I know Caitlin brought up a discussion on LOSUM, and I know that, I think it's a good reminder that as we, as we look at lake operations here, we're starting dry season. It's a good reminder of how LOSUM was put together for a couple board members that maybe weren't on the board, may not have been fully engaged during that process to develop this new Lake Okeechobee operation schedule. It took a lot of modeling, a lot of iterations. They boiled it down from 10, 20, 30,000 down to several iterations, down to some preferred alternatives, and ultimately had to model it using a period of record, so using historical rainfall amounts and operations and that kind of thing. And our current LOSUM schedule, Zone D, is a wide open schedule. And in terms of, there's a lot of flexibility. And I think that I understand the need for flexibility. A lot of my comments during that process, though, were you've got to be careful and be sure that you, we selected this alternative based on based on some modeling and boiled it down from 30, however many deals down to one plan. And I just want to encourage us as we look forward to the dry season. We used PA 25, Preferred Alternative 25, which kind of gave some guardrails. It kind of gave some zones within Zone D, sub-zones, and how those things were modeled. And I want to be careful that we don't want to stray from it. In particular, we look at the bottom here, and we're talking 350 CFS maximum towards the bottom of Zone D. And I want us to be careful trying to go above that. We've got C-43 reservoir, we've got some other things in the works, and then also being mindful. We haven't had a drought in many years, but in terms of getting Lake Okeechobee too low, we've just come through a recovery mode. I don't want to get in a situation where we fall below and cause harm to some submerged vegetation that we just kind of got to come back. So I just want to put that on the record here. Other than that, man, it's been a great last couple of weeks. A lot of groundbreakings, like Drew and others have recognized. Hickpachee, what a great project. In my comments there, it's an important project for the Northern Everglades Estuary Protection Program. It's important for agriculture. It's one of those regional projects that complement our BMPs that are happening on the farms. Jake kind of took the thunder there, mentioned Farm City Week. I knew he was going to do it. I did it to him last year, I think. I took it out from under him. But I would encourage everybody to check out your local Kiwanis Club, local Farm Bureau. There'll be a lot of Farm City Week activities happening here in the coming week. And if you don't have one, come visit Okeechobee. Okeechobee will have one next Thursday and at the KOA. But come meet your local farmers. In our case, come meet your youth that are highly involved in 4-H and FFA. And but let's celebrate leading up to Thanksgiving, what Thanksgiving is about. When it comes to us being able to have off-farm jobs and not having to worry about food. We can go to the grocery store and get our food from there. With that, Mr. Chairman, that's my comments for the month. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Butler. Colonel Roman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just would like to thank the entire district team for the successful events that we had over these last few weeks, both groundbreaking for Lake Hickpachee and also the EAA Reservoir. It was great to join many of you and the governor out there at the EAA. And, Drew, I think in his comments with these 80 events, these major milestones, ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings, I think he said that it averaged out to one per month. So that's an additional overlay to the staff's already fine work that they do each and every day here for the district. So I'd like to give a shout out to that entire team that makes all of that possible, that orchestrates those events, that photographs everybody and coordinates with the governor's office. And Jill, I know there's so many folks that are in the supporting cast, but you certainly are the lead and point person on those. I mean, that is a major, major undertaking in addition to everything else. So big shout out. Everything's first class. Every event that I get the opportunity to attend, everything runs smoothly. It's first class. It's just great to be a part of it all. So a big shout out to all of you. Thank you, Chauncey.
Thanks, Colonel Norman. Mr. Bergeron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I attended the groundbreaking for the new EAA reservoir inflow pump, probably one of the largest pumps in America or maybe even the world. Very impressive, and I do want to thank our staff for the logistics and coordination of such an event. It was a beautiful thing to see as we go forward with Everglades restoration. I want to thank the governor and all our legislators for the support we've been getting to continue Everglades restoration. I said this at the last meeting, but I'm really just totally amazed of how much the governor knows about Everglades restoration. And little update on the Tamiami Trail, where we're continuing to have our Zoom meetings. Things are coming together. As you all well know, the coordination of moving water south of the trail is, we've got 4 federal agencies and 4 state agencies. We're moving forward. The road will be completed somewhere in March of April of next year. All of the other different barriers dealing with the airboat tours, the Park Service is working on that. And then you have the Osceola camp that has to be elevated. And so things are coming together. So when the road is finished, we should be very close to being able to move water south, and that's going to be a great day. Matter of fact, if you think about it, when they started across the Tamiami Trail in 1915 and completed it in 1928, they cut off the natural flow to Florida Bay 110 years ago. And we're on the threshold of reestablishing that natural flow. And I just want to thank all our federal partners and our state agencies, and we will continue to give you an update as we go forward. I know that Western Everglades is on the forefront, and I want to thank our staff on the plans to make sure that we're taking into consideration the Seminoles, the Miccosukee tribe, private property owners, and our public lands, the Big Cypress Preserve. I will be abstaining from any voting in the Western Weir portion, but as per Form 8B, I do have the right to voice my opinion and participate in the best interest and follow my fiduciary duty. I've lived in that area for over 3/4 of a century. I lived with the Panthers, I lived with the Bears, I lived with everything that lived on earth before man entered. And but I'm going on record that I will be abstaining, but I will be participating, and I hope my opinion can bring us to a point that we're truly restoring for the benefit of all stakeholders. I think workshops are important, public workshops with all stakeholders as we go forward to, at the end of the day, we are truly restoring. That area is probably one of the most pristine areas. It's the wildlife corridor. It's the connectivity to the Caloosahatchee and beyond for the panther. Understanding that the Everglades is the only sustainable population left on this planet of the panther. A great success story that started in 1981 and went from 20 to 30 panthers to 230 panthers. What a great success story. That program was put together by the FWC. We got to recognize that the Big Cypress is a rain-driven system. It's on every PowerPoint. And as we bring this plan together, the number one stakeholder is the environment. And I'm so honored to be a part of that. I'm not sure any of y'all are aware, in the Central Everglades, there's a program going on where they're releasing deer back into the Central Everglades. Great program, supported by the Miccosukee and the Seminoles. And I know Mike Elfenbeim's involved with the Big Cypress Charter. Great program. And that's the reason why we need to continue to push forward to not have that cumulative backup at the Tamiami Trail that devastated the wildlife in the Central Everglades. And so, thank you. I apologize for being so long-winded, but long live the Everglades.
Thanks, Mr. Bergeron. Mr. Spotswood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also had the opportunity to attend the groundbreaking for the AA pump station. What an incredible accomplishment. So again, thank you to staff and Governor's office and our federal partners to help make that happen. I recall it being 3 billion gallons a day that facility can move, and we just heard from Jennifer that's as much water as South Florida's consuming every day. So it is a massive amount of water, pretty impressive. Would like to thank Newton for kind of being the conduit here and continuing to push on the discussion about Lake Okeechobee, particularly around spraying. I attended the FWC meeting in Belglade last week. Great discussion. Really happy to see where that's going. Want to thank FWC for taking the bull by the horns and really starting to figure this out for us. And also just wanted to kind of bend to one of the comments you made. I was not here for the LOSUM discussion, followed it a little bit, but it appears to me we need to also be thinking about how to manage lake levels to try to mitigate spraying needs. As my friend Scott Martin said at that meeting, spray smart. But we've got some great SAV growing. Need to make sure that establishes itself, and it'll be a natural barrier to some of these other invasives. So want to continue to be part of that discussion and thank everybody who's helping push that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Spotswood. Mr. Martinez.
No comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. And Mr. Steinle.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Not to say too much from the speaker system, but I think it's worth duplicating what's been said about the event with the new inflow pump station and the memorandum of understanding with the Army Corps that the governor enacted this summer. Just I think we should always highlight the fact that we're getting this project done 5 years in advance, 29 instead of 34. It's being done more quickly at a lower cost, and I was happy to have the opportunity when we did the groundbreak with the governor to thank him for his continued commitment, and in this case, cutting through so much red tape and bureaucracy to get these important projects done ahead of schedule. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Steinle. Yeah, I'd like to reiterate what my board members have said there. I missed the Lake Hicpochee groundbreaking. I apologize for that. That's a really important project, and I can't wait to see how that comes along. I did have a chance to get to the groundbreaking for the new pump station. I can't wait to see it when it's finished. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be huge, and it's going to be incredible. And I can't thank Governor DeSantis enough and Secretary Lambert for coming down and participating in that, and not only participating, but actually making it happen. So we're really excited about that, and the fact that we're expediting this and making it happen 4 years quicker is incredible. I'd also like to second what Drew said in thanking Star Farms and Florida Crystals for allowing us to be able to use their property to help facilitate some of our logistics as we move this project along more quickly than we thought we were going to. A year ago, we were in Clewiston, and a year ago, we were discussing whether we were going to do recovery on the lake, and there were some people there who were going, oh gosh, there's no way we can do that. They absolutely can't pull that off. It's going to be way too hard. We can't do it. It's going to rain too much, and why even start? Because once you start and then you don't get there, it's going to be a mess. I just want to thank the Corps for everything they did with LOSUM. I know it was hard. It's a process that seems to work. I mean, we look at where the lake is today. We're at, we're 13.74. We're a little foot and a tenth over the water shortage management zone, which I think is a really good place to be. I know some people would like to be higher than that, but I think for the lake, it's a great spot. I would like to just maybe remind folks that when we went into recovery last year, we did ask the East Coast and the West Coast to take some water they didn't really want. It didn't hurt anyone too much, but it did cause some consternation, and we took the extra water, and the lake is where it needs to be now. So I just want to be aware of that, as if we're asking now the East Coast or the West Coast not to take as much water as it needs, we should probably be aware of that. That, if we're going to ask them to pay the bill one time, we can't ask them to pay the bill all the time. So just keep that in the back of our mind as we work through this. And I'm praying that we don't have a drought, Mr. Butler, as we all are. But I want to make sure that our estuaries are taken care of as we go through this. And I think LOSUM does a pretty good job with that. All right, that wraps up board comment. We're going to move now to the consent agenda. Let's see. Is there a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
Or actually, we need public comment first on that? I'm sorry, Molly. I always mess that up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have public comment from Gil Smart.
Good morning again, governing board members. I'll be brief here. We want to note our concern regarding consent agenda item number 20, the LORP ASR wells. We're not fans of ASR wells, to put it mildly. We worry the water pumped into the wells could be contaminated by arsenic and other materials that could ultimately find their way into Lake O. The cost of ASR wells doesn't give the taxpayer a whole lot of bang for the buck. ASR wells do nothing to reduce impacts to the St. Lucie and Caloosahatchee estuaries or to send more clean water south to the Everglades and Florida Bay. The rate at which water flows into ASR wells is too slow to help much with flood control. Kind of effectively makes them a one-trick pony, and they're so expensive we worry that this diverts funding and attention from other projects that would have a broader benefit. So we ask that you keep in mind as you consider this topic today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smart. Next, we'll move over to our virtual participant, Mr. Perry. Please unmute your mic.
Yes, good morning again, governing board. My concern is that same item as item number 20 about the ASR wells in the Lake Okeechobee watershed restoration project. The project was kind of terminated status by the Corps of Engineers not long ago, and I appreciate that we go through with some sort of project. However, the ASR well portions of that component of that project are not as effective in our management of water and storage and treatment north of the lake, which is really where the original project for Lake Okeechobee watershed restoration project should be going. And years ago, we sat in at the first public meetings out at Okeechobee, and I remember, trying to look at the scope of this project is pretty big north of the lake, and that we really needed to do a lot north of the lake. But it gets narrowed down to just possibly restoring some of the wetlands of Paradise Run, but also, just the ASR well components. The 55 wells are not going to store and treat that water as much as we need to do north of the lake. And consequently, the 5 million gallon a day wells only move about 15 acre feet per day, which is about 7.5 CFS. So that's not a lot of movement of water to curtail with just 55 ASR wells. So it's not a major component to help reduce or eliminate discharges that may come out of the lake because of high water levels. But I understand the ASR components. We've never been in favor of them since the very beginning, when there were 200 proposed north of the lake, and then another 130 around the lake in the SERP project. So all of that's gone away, but we're down to this last component, and I know you have to invest this money. The legislature keeps allocating these funds every year, $50 million a year. So but it's just very expensive. It's going to be very expensive to maintain and operate this little bit of storage capacity that you might be able to get. But that's all. That's a concern we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Mr. Chairman, we have no additional public comments on consent.
Thank you for your comments. Is there any board member want to move any item from the consent to discussion? I should have asked you that a while ago. I was assuming the answer is no. Okay, now can I have a motion to second and approve?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Second.
And a second by Mr. Hurley. Thanks. Further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Spotswood?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Colonel Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Steinle?
Yes.
Thanks, that passes unanimously. We'll move now to our discussion agenda. And hear from Mr. Elsner again. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Great to be back up here today. I'll be presenting the draft final plan for the Central Florida Water Initiative Regional Water Supply Plan. This effort has been going on for over 3 years. And believe it or not, some staff have been working almost 12 years continuously on CFWI once we establish the process and make it better and better. And you can imagine it's a tremendous effort doing one plan with one district. Collaborating with 3 districts is a tremendous effort, a lot of meetings and a lot of dedication. I'll present the draft plan. At the end, I will be asking you to consider approval of the plan. And most of you know, but we don't start from scratch. The first plan was updated in 2015, or developed in 2015. We updated that in 2020. And the this 2025 plan built on all that effort and work of those previous plans. As you can imagine, with 3 districts working on this, you need a structure on how you're going to work. And part of the CFWI process is a steering committee, which consists of a governing board member from each of the 3 districts, DEP, DAX, and a representative from the public utilities. And I'd like to recognize Mr. Butler. He was our representative on the steering committee, and thank you. The Central Florida Water Initiative planning area is shown here. It consists of the three water management districts. It includes about 5,300 square miles. And the reason we need a collaborative effort up here is the water resources don't recognize our political boundaries. So we need to work together. Be talking about the Florida Aquifer in a minute, but that's the primary source. And and being able to meet the needs while also providing the needs and not harming the environment. The CFWI was to develop a uniform approach on water resource management in this area. And as you can imagine, it was a very collaborative process with the entities on the steering committee as well as the public utilities to make sure that we understand those concerns, but also that the plan addresses the needs going forward. This is on the right is a cross-section of the aquifer system underlying Central Florida. If you were able to take a chunk out of Central Florida and turn on its side, this is what you would see. Like I said, the Florida Aquifer is the primary water supply source in this area. It's a very large aquifer starting in southern Georgia and encompassing almost the whole Florida peninsula. It's very productive, and the water quality is very fresh northern Florida, and as you go south, it does get salty. And in where we're at now is the same Florida aquifer, but it's deeper and it's salty, so it requires desalination here. Up there, it's fresh and very good quality that some utilities just chlorinate it and send it into their pipes. It's that good. And as you can tell, it's we have a lot of systems that are dependent on it. We have our water supply, but also our natural systems in the springs and wetlands. It's a very important source to them. On the left of this slide shows the sources. As part of a water supply plan, we identify what are traditional sources, and those are the ones that we use every day. They're typically freshwater systems, and that would be the superficial and intermediate aquifer systems as well as the upper Floridan. We also identify alternatives, which will be used to assist in meeting those demands beyond what the freshwater sources can do. And in this area, that includes brackish and non-traditional groundwater, and that water, the brackish water, would exist in the lower portions of the Floridan aquifer system. Reclaimed water is a major player in this area in meeting the needs. It also includes surface water, storm water, seawater, and storage capacity. This isn't bound by the Gulf or the ocean. You wonder why seawater's on there, but it could be piped from the ocean, treated, and sent into this area. Here's the cover of the regional water supply plan. And just wanted to acknowledge all the staff that's worked on this, from the 3 water management districts and adopting the policy and following, or the procedure, and endorsing the procedure and carrying this through. As you can tell several times today, it's been a major effort. Plans are required to have at least a 20-year planning period, and we're updating them every 5 years, and the reason we do that is to stay current. Things are changing, and the 5-year period is a good time to relook and make sure of our assumptions and update it, because our economy is based on having a sustainable water supply, and we need to stay vigilant about that. In addition to the executive summary, there's many chapters as identified here that make up the plan, including population water demands, analysis, identifying the project options, as well as conclusions and recommendations. We've been busy. The utilities have been busy. The water users have been busy up there. There's been a tremendous amount of work that's happened since 2020 and even 2015. And a lot as a result of this plan, identifying that the Floridan aquifer is not an unlimited resource, and there are limits, and that we need to be supplementing the Floridan aquifer with alternative water supplies. First, we adopted a rule in 2021 that we're not going to regulate our way out of this, but what this does is provide a uniform framework on how permits are going to be reviewed and issued going forward for consistency within the Central Florida Water Initiative. Really important. There's also been a lot of work on minimum flows and water levels by the other water management districts in establishing minimum flows and levels or reevaluating minimum flows and levels for the springs and the natural systems. Like I said, there's been a lot of work going on up here. We have 2 major brackish Floridan aquifer desalination facilities and well fields that are being constructed. There's a lot of reclaimed water pipe and reclaimed water facilities being built. We were able to assist these projects with about $500 million in funding from the water management districts in DEP, and these projects will make about 88 million gallons a day available. There was another $2 million for water conservation that has been invested, and be able to conserve about 2 million gallons a day. Okay, so when you develop a water supply plan, the first thing you do is start with demands. And this slide shows the demands that we have projected in the Central Florida Water Initiative area. And I'm going to start from the bottom up and with, hold on. Please. There we go. All right, so population, as Jen indicated in her Team of the Month, this is a growing area, and if you have gone up Turnpike and I-4, it is tremendous that, you know, here we have the ocean to stop us from going east. Here there's nothing to stop them going north, south, east, or west, and there's a lot of construction going on up there. And the population projections reflect that using information from the University of Florida Bureau of Economic and Business Research, population is estimated to be growing by about 40%, or 1.4 million people from 2020 to 2045. Irrigated agriculture, using information from DAX, is actually a slight decrease by about 5%, from about 121,000 acres to about 115,000 acres. The primary crop here is citrus, followed by sod. In the table above shows the 6 categories that we do projections for, and 2020 and 2045 are on the left-hand side. We're projecting a 41% increase in water demands, and additional 264 million gallons a day of additional water will be needed by 2045. If you look at the columns, public water supply is the largest, followed by agriculture. This is a visual of sort of that information on the right-hand side of the slide, but this shows projected or historic and projected water demands from 1995 through 2045. The black line is population, and it has steadily increased. And then the color bars represent the different water use sectors. So the blue is public water supply, green is agriculture, and so on. And you can see that public water supply has been the biggest use category for the last 20 or 30 years, and will continue to grow, followed by agriculture. And then the other uses we project using the percentage of population growth, assuming that commercial, industrial, and landscape recreation will stay similar or proportionate with population growth. And as you can see, population increasing, and the lines do not, or the bars don't follow the lines necessarily, the population line, and that's because reclaimed water and conservation have played a primary role in this, and offsetting the use of groundwater. As part of the effort, we use modeling, and as part of that, we develop criteria and measure the performance of the groundwater system with the new demands against these criteria. For the environmental criteria, we had 38 minimum flow and level criteria that are in different states. Not in different states, but are different phases. We have had adopted MFLs that are being reevaluated, new MFLs, and we also had some target wells in Southwest Water Management District, as indicated by these purple and green areas. I wanted to point out here, if you notice, all the environmental criteria for MFLs are outside the Water Management District. But this is, this is very important that we don't have any MFLs in our district, but our use can influence the MFLs around us. Wetlands, another important part of our planning effort. and focusing on groundwater dominated wetlands. We have over 1 million acres of wetlands in this area that are shown on this map. Approximately 442,000 of those acres were included in this analysis. And like the other plan, like the 2020 plan, there's several areas that are susceptible to groundwater withdrawals. And one thing that's important as we're looking at these results is this analysis is done without any of the future projects in place that haven't been permitted or constructed. So this is the worst case, but through our efforts and issuance of consumptive use permits and development of projects, we will go ahead and mitigate any of those potential impacts into the future. So the bottom line, what this effort and the additional analysis that we've done is to support or found the same conclusion as the 2020 plan, that there's about 760 million gallons a day of available groundwater. With our demand projections, we've identified 856 million gallons a day of of groundwater demand. So doing the math, that identifies about a 96 million gallon day shortfall. To meet that needs, we've identified many project options, and I'll get into that the next slide, as well as water conservation projects. And I'd just like to stop here and show that this is testament to our water supply planning effort in the way of getting ahead of the demand and identifying this shortfall, but putting the strategies and identifying the resources today on how those future needs are going to be met. And with the project options and meeting that demand, it underpins the need for a continued investment in the water resource development in projects, as well as studies and increasing our knowledge of the aquifer, so that while we meet these demands, we're still meeting the needs of the environment. As part of this effort, we've went through and looked at conservation with all the water use types as shown here. We've identified about 44 to 52 million gallons a day of potential savings over the next 20 years. And the largest savings is in the public water supply category. And conservation, I can't say enough about, and this is where we should start. The cheapest gallon is the gallon of water we don't use and conserved through conservation. And through conservation, every million gallons a day you conserve is one less million gallons a day that you need to construct. And conservation could really save hundreds of millions of dollars in infrastructure. So using water efficiently is the first thing we want to do. It's not going to go ahead and address the whole shortfall, but it's the place to start. And then those project options. We've identified many project options, including brackish groundwater, management strategies, reclaimed water, surface water, on across the ways. With this, we have identified these projects could create an additional 514 million gallons a day. There's 167 project options that were identified. Some of those are carryover from the last plan, but with working with our stakeholders and with district staff, 66 new projects were identified as part of this effort. What's not on the slide is an additional 27 water conservation projects that were identified. As all of our effort, public participation and outreach is critical. We need to understand what the needs and concerns are, and then develop a plan that's supported and implementable. So we take every turn to get public input as we're developing these plans. We've had many discussions with local governments, environmental, agriculture, and utility representatives. There's been governing board updates. We've posted our draft plan for review. We received comments from about 20 entities, and those appropriate comments were incorporated in the plan and made it better. We've had several public meetings. We have a very extensive CFWI website, and as part of this effort involving 3 districts, that we put out a quarterly newsletter to update people on our progress as well as other things going on in the area. So the plan concludes that current and future water demands could be met through 2045 while sustaining the water resources and related natural systems. And that's going to take some work. We don't rest. We actually got to keep our foot on the pedal here, and that there's a lot of effort that's needed in the way of conservation and development of project options to meet these needs. You may recall that one thing with your approval of the plan, it now kicks off a statutory requirement that local governments need to update their local water facilities work plan within 18 months of your approval. As part of this collaborative effort, we brought this draft plan that you're considering today to the CFWI Steering Committee in September. They endorsed the plan and requested that we go to our individual governing boards and request approval. Yesterday, the St. Johns River Water Management District approved the plan. It's here today for your consideration, and it'll be on Southwest Governing Board agenda next week. And with that, I'd like you to consider approval of the 2025 Central Florida Water Initiative Regional Water Supply Plan.
Thanks, Mr. Elsner. We'll go to public comment, and then we'll come back for board comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have public comment from Caitlin Newcamp.
Good morning again. Excuse me. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. Chair and governing board members, Caitlin Newcamp with Audubon, Florida. I want to congratulate Mark for his award and his upcoming retirement, and thank you for all of your work. We do have a few comments on the CFWI plan, just reiterating some of the ones we submitted, and this is in light of acknowledging the tremendous work that has been made on the plan and all of that has gone into this with the coordinating agencies. So first, we just want to acknowledge that Central Florida's water supply is in jeopardy, and it depends on smart decisions today. So a couple of comments that we sent to the steering committee, I'm just gonna read them off here. The first is groundwater withdrawals in the Central Florida region already exceed sustainable limits. The plan assumes that 760 million gallons per day can be safely withdrawn, yet current use is just over 600 million gallons. It's already causing some saltwater intrusion, lake declines, and wetland stress. 16 water bodies now fail to meet the minimum flows and levels, and wetlands showing signs of stress have grown from 36,000 to more than 90,000 acres in less than a decade. Restoration plans are needed, but there is more work to be done. So we urge the district and the coordinating agencies to adopt restoration plans for this area using a precautionary approach to allocations and including safety margins to protect aquifers. Next, I just want to mention that, like Mark said in his presentation, that conservation should definitely be a cornerstone of this region's conservation or this region's water future. Lawn irrigation alone accounts for more water use than the entire projected 2045 shortfall. Yet the plan anticipates only 5 to 6% savings through conservation, which is far below what's achievable. So we encourage a regional goal, such as reducing outdoor irrigation by a substantial amount by 2030. And then we also encourage the governing board and other agencies participating in the plan to prioritize stormwater and reclaimed water projects that enhance recharge and restore wetlands rather than subsidize high water use lawn irrigation. So there are better uses for water reuse, we believe, that could be prioritized. We also encourage the district and the agencies to protect high recharge lands like the Lake Wales Ridge from urban encroachment, which is a risk that's coming up, and then to integrate water supply and water quality planning to align with restoration goals for the system such as the Wakaiwa Springs, Lake Jessup, Lake Okeechobee, and all other regional surface waters. So we are grateful for the plan and all the progress that has been made, but we do encourage the district and the other agencies to strengthen it by prioritizing conservation, protecting natural systems, and restoring enforceable safeguards to help ensure Central Florida's water future, to make sure it's resilient.
Please wrap up your comments.
So we're here to support that, and we thank you for listening to these remarks. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Newcamp. Mr. Chairman, we don't have any additional public comments.
Great, thanks. Mark, I'm going to start off with questions. You said you've got a shortfall of 96 MGD by 2045, I believe.
Yes.
Right. And you've identified 45 MGD in conservation, and then you said you've got 514 MGD in projects, or options, I guess. You only need 51. You've got 514. Do you have to do all 514, or how do you prioritize?
No, and that's a good question, and this plan does not dictate to the individual users what projects they need to develop. We provide a basket, or sort of a buffet of different options, identify different projects. They may even have other different projects that they want to do. So it's just to identify that there are sufficient projects and sources out there to meet those needs.
Gotcha, thanks. Anyone else? Mr. Butler? Thank you very much for your participation. I'm sorry, you raised your hand first. Colonel, go ahead, and then Mr. Butler.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mark, for your excellent presentation and your work on this. My question had to do with slide 7. I noticed year 2000 was way out of whack compared to the trajectory for population growth. What's going on there?
Good observation. I think that's due, 2000 was a drought, and the additional water that was needed during that drought to meet the needs. But also, nothing like a good drought to bring awareness to water. And every time we've seen a drought, water use has typically dropped after that. And you could see, like in 2005, the demands went down. So I think that's what is behind that. Through the drought, not conserving water as much. And then with the drought, you use more water, but it identifies. Well, we cut water use, but it also identifies the value of water needing to save it.
Well, I also share some of the chair's concerns with the conservation and the shortfall. I think that I always get a little concerned when conservation can't help get us at least to break-even point. And in this case, what your briefing is with the population explosion that's going on in that particular region, that the water demands are going to be greater than what we can use conservation measures to meet. And I think that's a delicate balance that maybe we need to give some more thought to. Thank you.
Mr. Butler, then Mr. Hurley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kind of go along, follow up with Chair there and talking about the 760 million gallon that we anticipate, the science tells us that the aquifer can withstand. Mark, what outstanding permits are, correct me, we're just over 1,000 million gallons if everybody were to pull their permitted amount? Is that right?
I'd say you're in the ballpark.
I think it's just over 1,000, somewhere around there. So I mean, it's when this CFWI came to fruition, it came to fruition because all of a sudden, 3 water management districts started talking to each other and realized we probably over-allocated we have over-allocated.
Call it $1 billion.
Yeah, call it $1 billion. I mean, that's 1,000 million gallons. And so I kudos to staff for working this, for getting the science. I mean, there's still a lot to be learned below our feet, just 500 foot to 1,000 foot below our feet. There is so much to be learned, and there's so much individual areas. I mean, you've had to take these models, look at a region, but there are just differences within little pockets. but anyways, to that point, one of the big, Tom, we were sitting here during your presentation, Tom pointed out the, looking at the agriculture numbers and the drop in the agriculture, and of course, Mr. Hurley from the citrus side understands what citrus has been through. And I think it's been fortunate in the planning process, unfortunate for agriculture, unfortunate for citrus, but to see the decline in citrus, knowing that the demand is there and needed to grow that crop, but that crop has been changed to the alternative crop of agriculture, which is rooftops, asphalt, and pavement. And it is so it's been a fortunate, unfortunate type situation through your planning process of the last 15 years with CFWI. The biggest thing for speaking up is, unfortunately, the word is out that Florida is a great place to live. And this doesn't even include the villages. The villages is north of this CFWI planning. So, I mean, this is, you know, in fact, the villages is probably more in a recharge type area. And that's, again, we're, you know, that whole North Florida is the key to making sure, and that 760 is today's number. We hope that recharge rate stays the same as growth continues in our state. You know, it's not our job to limit growth. It's our job to find the water and to meet those challenges, and staff has done a great job. But boy, it is a scary situation when you boil down and think about it.
Yep.
So kudos staff, and thank y'all for everything that you've done. And not just our district, but the other two water management districts. As you begin to learn more, it's a Herculean effort, and we are out of cheap water, got the expensive water to use now.
Mr. Hurley.
Thanks, Chair. First of all, congrats, not only on your 35 years of service, but coordinating such a, I mean, awareness is curative, and so having this information and having the discussions, I think, is really, really important. Mr. Butler talked about the citrus industry's decline, and the one thought that comes to me as we kind of deal with the conversion of groves to other types of uses. The most common are, as we say, our last crop are Yankees, so rooftops and the like. But as we've looked at other forms of agriculture to take the place of citrus, all of them are more intense users of water. So in modeling the future, I guess my word of caution, or something to put into our thinking as we sort of redo these analyses every 5 years, is just to take into account that the number of gallons per acre that citrus uses is relatively light compared to some of the alternative crops, row crops, and other things that might take over. And as our population grows, obviously we're going to need to maintain a portion of our agricultural footprint, which will almost assuredly take a lot more water per acre. So that was just my one comment. But the question that I have is, when you have a framework like this, and thinking about, I don't know how many municipalities are inside this footprint, but they all have their own comprehensive growth management plan, and they all have a different posture towards growth. And I'm just wondering how we can use this framework to inform their planning decisions, because, you know, in our world, when we're thinking about growth, you know, the obvious things get addressed, roads and school concurrency and all that sort of thing. But we don't ever really hear a lot about the water resource, right? And so it seems like that the local municipalities and the stakeholders frequently just assume there's going to be enough water.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I'm concerned about, you know, as my colleagues in the citrus industry convert their properties over to other types of uses, that you know, that we may wake up in 5 years and say, oh my gosh. So. Yeah.
And just a couple comments. Back in, I think it's around 2014, the legislature, agriculture is very tough to project. you know, with the local, state, international markets. And in 2014, I think it was, legislature told DAX that they need to produce statewide projections. Okay, that has really helped in the way of projecting agriculture. They do a GIS coverage and actually show by parcel what they're projecting to change over time. And, you know, they're looking at ownership, development, markets, and things like that. And that has really helped us to sort of have a better agricultural number than us trying to generate it. And we appreciate it. They do a great product. We meet with them at least once a year and talk about what we're seeing, what they're seeing before they go ahead and do their projections. So we have a really good relationship in the way of trying to understand the agricultural side of things. These plans we're directed by statute to identify sufficient water to meet the needs. You know, so your question about local government is they're approving development. They do work with their utilities. And the cost of water, you know, should come up in that discussion, and the lack of water and what it's going to take to do that. We do review the water facilities work plan, which is the local government's plan on how they're going to meet their water needs over their 10-year program. But you know, that's how we engage with the local governments.
Mr. Spotswood.
Thank you, Mark. We had discussed this briefly, and kind of to your point, you know, when talking about water supply and modeling industrial and commercial use based on population growth, there have been some changes going on around the country, namely data centers, new forms of power generation, potentially small modular reactors. I think there's a lot of things coming in the future that, now on the other side of that, advancements in technology and other things, it really is a difficult job you guys are doing, but that's an item that has concerned me in the same vein as to whether we're properly anticipating the water consumptions for those uses. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Bertrand?
So this shortfall is mainly in Central Florida?
Yes, in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, that's, do we have any plans to address that, or is there any way we can slow down the flow that's coming from the northern Everglades southbound? I would think some of those flows are greater than natural, since a lot of land is being drained into our state waters.
Yeah, a couple things. One, I talked about that rulemaking that happened in 2021, and it sort of made a uniform process on how we're going to move forward with the permitting side of things. You know, understanding that shortfall and that there are permits out there beyond the 760. So that's that was a very important part on, you know, how we're going to move forward from that aspect. The other thing that I didn't mention is with those minimum flow and level water bodies, there's prevention and recovery strategies associated with those. And a lot of those are more local in nature, and it's tough to capture as part of a regional modeling effort. But those are in place, and St. John's and Southwest are working and implementing those recovery and prevention strategies. But they're also continuously reviewing the minimum flow and level to see if that's the appropriate number or not. So there's projects associated with that. And I think the big thing is the number of project options that we've identified in the plan, and well exceed the need. And so we have a buffet that has more water in it than we need to meet. So we need to develop those projects. And another thing is management and how we operate our well fields, and adjusting where that pumpage is coming from, and moving it further away from the more sensitive areas, the springs, the wetlands. So there's a number of tools in our toolbox that going forward, and if implemented, we think we can manage and meet that demand.
Well, it seemed to me like we got plenty of water in southern end of the district. You know, that's why we're building all these reservoirs and trying to store water for water supply and agriculture and compatible volumes of water with the environment on the Florida Bay. And that's why Everglades restoration is so important. You know, a lot of people may have the viewpoint that Everglades restoration, we're just saving God's landscaping and the wildlife, but we live on a peninsula, and without that watershed, we'd have saltwater intrusion. So we're really saving ourselves into the future. And so I just think there's a lot more water coming from the north than is natural from pre-drainage due to the fact there's so many discharges going into some of our rivers coming south. How can some of that water be held back to be able to replenish our water supply in these areas?
Yep, and I'd say SERP is very important, and it's, you know, it's an environmental restoration project, but it's also a water supply project. It's keeping water in the system. It's raising groundwater levels. It's giving us water that we have the flexibility to move around for environmental as well as recharge purposes. This area, like you said, is sort of disconnected from the formal restoration project area. And here, you know, surface water is a traditional source here. Up there, this plan identifies surface water as an alternative source, understanding that there may be volumes that could be captured and used up there versus sending south.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Butler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll go ahead and give you a motion if you're ready.
I am
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a motion and a second. Is there further?
Yep, 25 CFWI Regional Water Supply Plan. Move for approval.
Thanks. And a second by Colonel Rowan.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Spotswood?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Colonel Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
I vote yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Mr. Steinle?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Steinle. That passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Elsner.
Thank you. And this slide was done before the Team of the Month was announced, but I'd like to recognize our Team of the Month, or the people who worked on this. And, you know, I'm up here presenting it, but those people are the ones who did all the work.
Well, thank you to you and your team.
Thank you.
We'll move now to our technical reports with Mr. Mitnick and Dr. Welch.
All right, good morning. So we'll start where we usually do, just kind of looking back over the last couple of months and the amount of rainfall that the district has received. You can see right there on the far right-hand side that pretty much for the month of November, it hasn't rained. So there's nothing in that box. But for October, I'll just call that average. We were very slightly below average, but it was pretty much average rainfall for the month of October. But again, over on the left-hand side, you can see November, there really hasn't been any rain. That's why it's all lit up nice and red. But overall, for the water year, going back to the beginning of May, we're sitting right about at average. That number will start to decrease if this drier conditions that we've experienced so far in November continue to persist for a little bit longer. But looking at the upper chain of lakes, East Lake and West Lake over here on the right-hand side, you can see they're pretty much both at their winter pools. We're gonna work to maintain those winter pools. Those gates are closed and we'll ride that schedule for as long as we can. You can probably anticipate though, with a lack of rainfall, just wind, evaporation, we'll see those lakes decline a little bit over the next coming weeks. But for Lake Kissimmee, we're continuing to move water out of Lake Kissimmee, and you can see how Lake Kissimmee is starting to drop down through its regulation schedule, consistent with the increment 1. So we're maintaining those flows down the restored reaches of the river, and Zach's gonna tell us how the river's doing.
Okay, so starting up at the north end of the system on the Kissimmee River,
We heard that we're in the dry season now, so we'll see how this is affected throughout the system. We've been hearing about how it's getting wetter month to month. Now we're going to see how it's drying down. So you can see from a month ago, the river is quite a bit drier than it was. Even though we have the same CFS as a year ago at 1,400, really the flows play a big portion in terms of the depths on the floodplain, but if you have local rainfall, that can affect the depth. So right now we've had pretty dry conditions for the last month, so the only flows we have coming down are from S65A, not the local watershed. So you can see a lot of the floodplains about 6 inches or less water depth right now. If you look at the history of the flows in the top left graphic, you can see we had this rain event that ended the wet season in early to mid-October, which shows up here, this last little hurrah of the wet season before we go into the dry conditions. So we had a little higher flows there, and since then we've been at about 1,400 CFS, which is kind of that minimum flow level that we need to get water over the crest of the banks and into the floodplain a little bit. The good news is with the lower temperatures and the reduced flows, we don't have dissolved oxygen problems anymore, so we're well out of those stress ranges and up to about 5 or so DO. So looking at how water has moved around in the northern portion of the system, you can see so far this year, this water year going back to the beginning of May, there's been about 1.1 million acre feet of water come into Lake Okeechobee, with about 200,000 acre feet of that just being within the last month. Looking at the East Coast, for the C44 basin, all of that water is continuing when there is rainfall, it being continued to flow back into Lake Okeechobee. So that's this roughly 67,000 acre feet of water has moved from the C44 basin back into Lake Okeechobee, which means there hasn't been any water move out of the basin to the estuary through the C44, neither lake water nor basin runoff. But up in C23, 24, roughly 186,000 acre feet have been discharged to the estuary, and a little bit farther north up around the Fort Pierce area at 117,000 acre feet so far this water year. Over on the west coast in total, between basin and lake water, about 673,000 acre feet have been moved into the estuary, with roughly 21,000 acre feet of that having originated back in Lake Okeechobee. Right now, the 30-day average for flows to the Caloosahatchee is about 727, 730 CFS. So that's what we'll keep an eye on as we continue to move forward in managing the water resources that we have to get us through this dry season. But looking at the projections on Lake Okeechobee itself, you'll recall that it's just off of this graph over here, but you'll recall pretty much the month of September, we got about a foot of inflows into Lake Okeechobee, and then we got another roughly half a foot in October, which put us there at the beginning of November, just below 14 feet. I think it was 13.98 to be precise. So as we look forward in time and take into consideration the climate forecast up here at the top, where the Climate Prediction Center is calling for below average rainfall, that's those reds as they start to light up through the different windows, different months going through March. Looking at the 50th percentile going through the middle of the graphic here, you can see by June 1st comes in, I'll just call that 11.5, 11.8, somewhere in that neighborhood, which means you've got a 50-50 shot of being at or below that level come June 1st. 25th percentile, and I heard you, one of the commenters earlier talked about a 75% chance. This is where it comes from. So you've got 25% chance of being at 10.5 in the water shortage management ban of on June 1st, which conversely means you've got a 75% chance of being above it. So that's how the math works. But generally, that's what we're looking at as we move forward in the future, somewhere between right in here, and you'll recall from previous meetings, roughly during the dry season, the lake will fall on average about 3 feet. So during an El Nino year, it's going to be less than the 3 feet. During a La Nina year, which is what we're forecasting, a relatively weak La Nina, but nonetheless a La Nina, you can have a little bit more than 3 feet come off the lake. So with that, so those were the water year total flows. The graphic on the left is just for October. You can see we got about 320,000 acre feet into the lake, which was about half a foot or 0.4 feet. In October, the lake came up.
You can see how those flows are distributed. Not surprisingly, half of that came just down the Kissimmee River. We had only about 90,000 acre-feet of rainfall and very little outflows. So the graph on the right shows how the inflows to the lake have been declining over time for the last few months. We had that rain event I mentioned in early to mid-October, and that's that spike in flows there, pretty evident. And since then, we've been declining pretty steadily, and flows south have just started picking up, as well as flows west there in November. So you can see we came up about 0.4 feet in October, and since then we've been relatively stable lake stage, right near the bottom of the recovery ecological envelope. That shows in the water depth map on the right at 13.9 feet. We're starting to wet a lot of the marshes on the upper elevations of the lake, so that's good for prey production and things for the next wading bird season. That said, when we're at stages at about 14 feet beginning the dry season, we don't expect good wading bird conditions next year. It's probably going to dry out a little too fast for them, including snail kites. They like wetter conditions on the system. But we do expect really good continued recovery conditions for the SAV, which is kind of the focus of our group at the current moment. Speaking of SAV, I just wanted to give a little update because it's been a while since you've heard about it. We usually do our annual sampling in August, and that's that grid map that we show everyone that talks about the totals. But we also do some transect sampling where we measure the stem heights and the biomass of the plants to get a sense of how robust those communities are. And I'm going to talk about relative to 2019 because that was kind of the last time we had lower conditions hoping to recover SAV, and that was after Hurricane Irma. You can see we were a little, what's that, Mom? Okay, you can see we're a little lower in 2019, almost 2 feet lower than we were this year. And so that kind of gave a jump start to the SAV in 2019 compared to this year. So we do have smaller plants right now than we did in the fall of 2025, but really similar coverage. So we went out in October and looked at some areas, and instead of a lot of these 1 to 2 inch tall plants that are spreading around in the shallows, we have 4 to 6 inch plants, so we've seen some good growth. We're confident they're doing well right now. There's one patch that looks really good. It's one of the only areas that survived Hurricane Milton, and that's shown in the photos in the top left. And those are over 2 feet tall and have flowering bodies, and so we're confident those are going to do well moving forward. Algae, it's kind of the end of the algae season. We call it May to October on the lake is when we have most of our blooms, and the temperature that the cyanobacteria like is over 25 degrees Celsius. You can see we've been under that for a little bit. We did have one warm weekend last weekend where it got up above 25, excuse me, again, and so you see we had a bloom on the south end of the lake as a result of that. That's since dissipated because you can see we dropped about 5 degrees Celsius just in the last few days, and so we don't expect blooms from here on to be very intense. I did want to do a little summary of the whole bloom season this year because we're in November now, and so the maps on the left are kind of selected as the most intense or highest coverage of blooms for each of the water years or each of the years, and you can see a couple things. One, 2022 and 2025 don't have a lot of those bright reds and bright oranges that you see in the other years. And those bright reds represent, really dense algae, usually microcystis blooms, and usually with toxins greater than the EPA recommended limits of 8 micrograms per liter. So the graph on the top right shows the percentage of our water samples that have any toxins detected, microcystin toxins detected, and then the numbers of samples are in the bar graphs if you're curious. And so in years like 2020, 2021, you can see we get about half of our samples or more have toxins detected. They may be really low level, but we're detecting them. And then up to 10% can actually be above the EPA limits, which are the kind of the red in the bottom of the graph. And as you can see, 2022 and 2025, we have much lower detections, down about 15%. So, low bloom coverage this year, low bloom intensity, and low toxicity. So that's all good. One thing that I wanted to point out, and you may have heard about this from Dr. Armstrong earlier, is we've detected a lot of Cylindrus spermopsin toxin, which is really unusual for Lake Okeechobee at least, since we've been monitoring as expansively as we have since 2020. You can see we only had 2 detections in 2020, 4 in 22, 1 last year, and now 131 so far this year. These are all really low detections, barely detectable levels of cylindrous spermopsin. It's not unusual for Florida lakes. I was just talking with St. John's River Water Management last week, and they typically see low concentrations of cylindrous spermopsin in their lakes, but it's unusual for Lake Okeechobee. And the reason is we've had some pretty low inflows this year and low nutrient levels, and Microcystis is one of those cyanobacteria that can't fix nitrogen from the atmosphere. And so it really benefits from years where we have a lot of biologically available nitrogen, and that also creates toxic blooms. So this year you can see only a quarter of our samples were dominated by Microcystis versus half last year. And then I don't have the species listed here, but you can see a lot of these are dominated by another species or co-dominated by another species about half of the time. And those happen to be species that do fix nitrogen, like Raphidiopsis and Dolichospermum, and they can produce cylindrous spermopsin. So lower nutrient levels this year due to lower inflows, different bloom communities, and different results in terms of toxins. So we're going to move now to the estuaries, and again, same story, big flows in early to mid-October that caused salinities to drop. As you can see in the bottom left graphic, a lot of the North and South Forks were essentially fresh due to those inflows, and since then, dry season's taken over, flows have declined, and salinities have pushed back into the North and South Fork. Where we measure salinities for oysters, you can see we're back into the optimal range at the US 1 bridge. Those high flows pushed us down into stressful and just a little bit into damaging, but we're back into optimal conditions there. This is the spat data and oyster density data that you see month to month. With the new figure here is we had 0.63 spat in October, and again, that represents September conditions. So this doesn't really capture those high flow periods that we saw in October. But that's a decent number. We hope to see another little uptick at their fall peak, but with these cold temperatures we've seen, we may have the end of the oyster spat season. I think Cassandra showed this last time, but I just wanted to point out again, the really big spat we saw in June resulted in really a doubling of our oyster density last month. So that was really good news for the St. Lucie oyster community. And I also wanted to point out this graphic in gray, the shaded gray, is salinity levels, and you can see we're basically in the optimal range for the entire calendar year. And this is during Lake recovery operations too, remember. So we had some flows, pushed us a little closer to the stress range, but still in optimal. So good news, we got the lake down, and we had good conditions for oysters in the St. Lucie. Moving to the Caloosahatchee, we don't have as big a rainfall event there in early to mid-October as we did on the East Coast. So flows have been steadily declining there basically all of October, and we see now they're pretty low, and we've had some lake releases evident in blue there in November. And the salinities have pushed upstream, so the freshwater portions now are basically back up past 79. And where we measure salinity levels for oysters, Shell Point is really the most important one. That's where most of the oysters are, and you can see we've been in the stress range now for a couple weeks there. As far as spat, we had a new number of 4.4, which is pretty good. We're not comparing to 2024 here. This is a kind of a banner year, so we don't expect to see that all the time, but 4.4 spat at Iona Cove is pretty good. And then we had 30 at Bird Island. So again, we had pretty good conditions on the Caloosahatchee for oysters this year as well. So that's another good news.
So looking at the southern portion of the system, you can see inflows to the water conservation areas have been about 650,000 acre feet, give or take. And then down into Everglades National Park down here, inclusive of some of that seepage return water over here along the eastern side, flows have been about 430,000 acre feet so far. For the past month or so, you can see those flows are starting to decline with that drier weather that we've been experiencing, especially in the last 2 weeks or so. But runoff from the lower East Coast going to the Tide and Biscayne Bay has been just right around 1.1 million acre feet. And of that 1.1 million acre feet, about 800,000 of it was to Biscayne Bay over here on the lower East Coast. Right now, the Tamiami Trail flow formula calls for about just over 900 cubic feet per second coming out of Conservation Area 3 down into the park. There are no releases moving from Area 1 down into Area 2, but we are moving some water from Area 2A down into 2B to be able to support some of those flows, and I'll touch on that in a couple more slides. But for the stormwater treatment areas, you can see with that drier weather, there's only been about 521,000 acre feet have been treated through the stormwater treatment areas this water year to date.
And how those flows have been distributed, you can see in the graphic on the upper right. STA 3-4 has gotten about as much as all the other STAs combined. That's our biggest treatment area. As we move into the dry season, we're starting to get closer to our target depths throughout the STAs. STA 5-6 is being held a little deeper in anticipation of the dry season because that area can dry out, as you've heard. As far as the treatment capacities, the bottom graphic shows inflow total phosphorus concentrations and outflow concentrations. You can see they're below 19, so we're meeting targets in all the STAs except for STA 5-6, which, as you've heard, has some dry out issues that we're hoping to address with C-139 FEB. These are the water depths across the STAs. Sure you've heard STA 1 East Central Flow Path is under construction, so that's why that looks dry there throughout and not up to stages. You can see STA 3-4 is a little wet on the north end, and then the STA 5-6, I mentioned the cells being held a little higher to accommodate the upcoming dry season.
So looking more specifically at the southern portion and the conservation areas, up here on the upper right-hand side, you can see Conservation Area 1 is below the top of its regulation schedule, and it's been relatively flat. There are some decline in those water levels just from evaporation. We have been working with the refuge and others about how to manage that water level as we move forward in time. For Area 2, you can see it's starting to come down, as I mentioned a minute ago. We're moving some water from Area 2A down into 2B just to bring that up. So you should see some increases over the last several weeks in Area 2B. But for Area 3A, down below its schedule, it's continuing to recede. As I mentioned, there's about 920 CFS, cubic feet per second, moving out of Area 3 down into the park. Primarily that's being delivered through S12C and D and the 333 structure sitting right there. But pretty much down the South Dade conveyance system, operations are in conservation mode, trying to maintain that hydraulic ridge that sets up along the eastern side of the park to just hold that water back in the slough itself and not just seep out over into eastern Miami-Dade County.
So another way to look at the water depths across the Everglades are these depth maps comparing over the past few months. Again, October, things got wetter pretty much throughout the system. And now that we've gone into the dry season, we're seeing conditions get drier, especially through 3A. So you can see WCA 1 has now started recessions. We still have a lot of water in 2, as John mentioned. And then 3A is drying out, especially this portion up here next to the L38 West, which is northeastern 3A, where we like to see a lot of wading bird activity next year. There's a colony up there that's really important. But you do see there's still connectivity between all the major sloughs down in the park. If we look at the water depths, not just relative to the last couple months, but to the last 20 years, you can see the water levels in 2A south are about above the 90th percentile, so really wet relative to the last 20 years, versus below the 10th percentile in 3A. So really different conditions on the other sides of the levees there. And when you have low conditions like that in 3A this time of year, that's likely to affect the wading bird conditions. For next year, they're highly dependent on 3A, and we are at low water depths right now relative to where we've been. So if we look at the 3 gauges there relative to stages from 2001 to 2024, you can see we're essentially the driest we've been in that 24-year period at all 3 gauges at the start of this dry season. So we know we're not going to have water depths for a great wading bird next year in 3A. We're a little concerned about species like the wood storks, which rely on bigger prey items like small fish that take a little while to build up prey to the highest density they need. And so they like wetter conditions, and they take some wet conditions for a little while to build up that prey base. So if we have dry conditions continue into 2026, then we expect wood storks can maybe be affected even into 2027. So the Everglades group is watching this closely. These are just some tables showing recession rates and accession rates on the left, kind of categorized by ecological conditions. So yellow is fair, green is good. And then on the right is water depths, and these are at all the gauges across the different water conservation areas. So the most recent week here is on the right, November 10th, and you can see we've got kind of fair conditions, pretty high recession rates, but still in the fair category across those water conservation areas. And then just pointing out the difference between WCA 2A, where we have over 3 feet of water still, versus about 3/4 of a foot in northeastern 3A. And you know, the wading birds would like to have 1.5 feet more or so in there to be building prey production to be able to last into their nesting season. Moving down to Florida Bay, again, things drying out a little bit. Taylor Slough depths have declined. They're still above the recent average for this time of year by about 2.4 inches. The bay-wide average salinity has increased, and it's now about 2.4 above the average, the recent average for this time of year. But at all 3 stations, east, central, and west, we're still right around the 50th percentile relative to that recent time period. And so we'll be watching this closely as we move into a potentially drier than dry average season.
So as we look at the future forecast coming out of the Climate Prediction Center, you'll notice that we're a tale of 2 stories. Pretty much northern water management district and the southern water management district. As we step through the different windows, for the most part, the big pie charts are pretty much equal chances, but that equal chances comes primarily in the southern portion of the district. So areas south of Lake Okeechobee, there's equal chances of normal, above normal, or below normal. Not quite sure how that'll play out, but as you look north of Lake Okeechobee at each of the different windows, it's leaning towards below normal. Earlier I had said the forecast is for a La Nina, but it's a weak La Nina, and these are the types of conditions that you get in a weak La Nina, that it's trending towards below normal, but you're not quite sure where that's going to set up as fronts start coming down the peninsula through the dry season. So this is something we're going to keep an eye on and keep track of, but it could be a tale of 2 worlds, north and south of Lake Okeechobee, as far as rainfall goes as we get into the deeper into the dry season. But at least for the next 2 weeks, district meteorologists don't see any rain in the forecast over the next 2 weeks, so the drier spell is likely to persist a little bit longer. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
Oh, thank you both. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Mr.
Just
Butler?
real quick, I'm doing my best to make it rain. We laid down hay on Monday, laid down grass, trying to dry it out for hay. And when it looks like we finished an early meeting today, I will go lay down some more hay this afternoon. So I am trying my best to make it rain and doing our part.
I'll wash Mr. Bergeron's car. Mr. Bergeron?
Well, you want to get the hay baled before the rain, don't you?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm giving that opportunity. It can rain, Murphy's Law.
From a standpoint of the environment, it looks like we're going to have a pretty good dry season. From the environmental standpoint, that can be positive when you look at the lake and you look at the Central Everglades. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, over the last several years, I mean, this board knows, we've had emergency conditions in the Southern Everglades and had high water events in the Southern Everglades. So having a year where there's lower water is both good and bad. As Zach talked about, there's some concern over about the wading bird success going through this dry season and into the next year. But having normal or below normal water levels after those successive successive wet years can be a good thing. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Zach.
No, that sums it up.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Most of the time, every year, we're dealing with high water events. As long as it don't get so dry that the muck, the peat could catch fire, we're probably going to have a pretty good cleansing of the wetland, and where the ground cracks and aerates and the silt underwater oxidize and dissipate. But we got a long way to go to make sure we don't get too dry. And is there any activities going on as far as controlled burning in the Central Everglades that prior to a bad drought? We have anything going on like that, John?
Not that I'm aware of right now, but I can follow up and find out if we do.
Yeah, I think the FWC's got some programs and looking at we could have an extremely dry year. Got to go all the way to May or June in most cases to replenish the wetland. And it looks like we're, normally we have, about 60 inches of rain? And we're looking at about 35 this year. So it's quite a dry year. And that can be positive if it doesn't get too dry. It's a very sensitive balance. So we'll have to maybe pray for a little bit of rain. But it seems like the lake is benefiting at the moment from these lower levels.
Yeah, similar to what John mentioned about the Everglades, we've had high water conditions that we were hoping to recover from on the lake, and so a little lower conditions right now is ecologically beneficial, given there are still costs. We're going to have lower wading bird numbers, lower snail kite nesting numbers and things, but considering we're still trying to recover from high water impacts, it's good to have low levels on the lake this year.
Well, we've had a lot of high water. So I noticed we're about a foot above in 2A and we're a foot below in
Correct.
3A.
Correct, as I
2A
said, so
versus
we're moving some
3A.
of that 2A
Do we have
water.
any plans to gradually move some of the higher water to moving south and?
Yes. So right now, as I said, we're moving some of that 2A water into 2B to prop up those water levels. Once we get done with that operation, we'll start to look, and actually, you celebrated it here earlier in the meeting with the Employee of the Month. We have a new tool in the toolbox, a new structure that hopefully will be able to operate this dry season to be able to move some of that water from 2A down over into 3A and redistribute it across the northern face of 3A. But we'll start looking to do that here in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, and the water you're moving into 2B is compatible with the environment.
Correct.
Because once you get it in there, you don't really have a way for it to continue to get out.
Correct. It just seeps out over into Broward County.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's pray for a little rain.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you both. Ms. Heater, we'll go now to the financial report.
Good morning. The monthly financial report, which is posted on the district's website under the Budget and Finance Reports, is through the month of September, so the last month of fiscal year 25. We ended, and I will say unaudited ended, at $1.3 billion of revenue, new revenue collections, pardon me, and expended $1.2 billion. The $1.3 billion includes $843 million from intergovernmental, and it also includes $377 million from taxes, those being our two largest revenue sources. We did collect all of our ad valorem taxes. We collected an additional $1 million. And generally that's because of not folks not taking the 4%, comparing this September to last September, we collected $200 million more in revenue because of your intergovernmental. And you know that's based on how your projects are performing. And expended $181 million. So 18% more revenue, 18% more expenditures. So it was very good, very good year. During the month of September, we collected $67 million and we spent $110 million. 93% of those expenditures were from restoration and O&M, which is about $103 million. 3% in science and monitoring at $3.6 million, and 3% or $4 million for regulatory management, administration, and outreach. We maintained and ended the fiscal year spending on average of $98 million per month. And last year we were at $83 million. So just one last little note is that your finance staff is working through October expenditures and November expenditures that are to be accrued back because they were for services through the month of September, because you get your invoices sometimes 1 to 2 months later after your expenditures. So your year-end expenditures will change. So your ACFR will then yield what those ending results are for fiscal year 25. And we're projecting to be done with that process hopefully by the second week of December. And then move into then the auditor's phase of reviewing everything, which they've already started a lot of their work. So that concludes my report to you.
Over the last 40 days, the federal government has not been making payments. Are we behind? Are they behind in any payments to us?
We have not seen a change as far as our revenues coming in from the Corps of Engineers, which is where we get the majority of our revenues from, from the federal side. So we have not seen an impact. But we also invoice them quarterly,
Okay.
right? So, but we had no indication that there was going to be an issue either.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
We'll move now to general public comment, if there is any.
We have none, Mr. Chairman.
We will move now to final board comment. Let's see, I'll start with you, Mr. Spotswood.
No comments from me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bergeron.
I always have a comment.
Excellent.
Okay. Been a great meeting. It's an honor to sit with all of you. Happy Thanksgiving to my fellow board members, all our staff, all our stakeholders. We're blessed to be in America, and long live the Everglades.
Thank you, Mr. Bergeron. Colonel Roman.
Yes, I'd like to echo that wish for a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope you all get to unplug and relax and enjoy some quality time. Thank you.
Mr. Butler. Mr. Hurley.
Just one thing, I'd like to just re-acknowledge the service awards this week, or this meeting. Renee and Mark, 30, 35 years is really just incredible, and I just want to acknowledge that. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just a quick comment and to reiterate, I think the comment that you made and I believe Drew also made, and that is to give a big thanks to the folks over at Florida Crystals and their cooperation with our staff to be able to keep moving the EA project, which is obviously our landmark project. Come a long way, and I look forward to continue great cooperation between Florida Crystals and the district. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Mr. Steinle?
No comment, Mr. Chair, thanks.
Thank you. I have no further comment other than to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and if you're traveling, have a safe Thanksgiving, because I look forward to seeing you back here on December 11th at 9 o'clock for our next meeting. Thanks. We're adjourned.